Good morning, glad you could join us. Hey, just recently I got back from a mission trip in Kentucky and I put together a devotional guide. Now, the devotional guide that I put together for the folks that went, and we had a lot of students and we had actually some of their parents and other adults. We had a crew of 20, had a great time, great trip. But the devotional guide is something I put together trying to think when it was. It was a while ago, probably about 20 years ago, if not a little bit more. And one of the things that I included each day was read a psalm. And as I was going through there, I'm like, man, I really like this psalm. It's like, it's because you pick your favorite psalms, Paul. Not too hard to figure out that I would like all of them. Because there's 150 of them, and I had about 11 or so of my favorites. So here's one of my favorites, and I'm going to share some thoughts that I picked up from James Montgomery Boyce, his book, Come to the Waters, and also some things from, Bono and The Edge and U2. Yeah, Psalm 40. They wrote a song called 40, and it's based on this. Verse 1 says, I waited patiently for the Lord to help me, and He turned to me and heard my cry. We'll talk more about that. He lifted me out of my pit of despair, out of the mud and the mire. He set my feet on solid ground and steadied me as I walk along. He has given me a new song to sing, a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see what He has done and be amazed. Then they will put their trust in the Lord. Oh, the joys of those who trust the Lord, who have no confidence in the proud or in those who worship idols. So our trust needs to be in God. So here's the question, what's your pit? Yeah, what's your mud and mire? It might be sin. It might just flat out be something that you know is wrong. And according to the book of Romans, that when we insist on things, then God gives us over. And what that means, it's a scary thing. In other words, it's like a little kid that says, I want candy, and they break in, and they take it where they're not supposed to have it. Eventually, they're probably going to throw up and get sick. But that's kind of what God does. He's like, this is what you really want, I'll let you have it. But then we reach the point, it's like, no, God, that's not what I need. We need somebody to pick us up, someone to have mercy upon us, and that's God. And so that's what David says. He lifted me out of my pit of despair, out of the mud and the mire. He set my feet on solid ground. If that's you today, God wants to forgive you, and He wants to get your feet on solid ground, on the firm foundation of His Word. You might need accountability. You might need to talk to somebody. But maybe your pit is despair, but it has nothing. It's not sin on your part. Man, I think of David. And David did sin, and maybe he was talking about that. He committed adultery with Bathsheba, and then he had her husband killed. That story starts in 2 Samuel 11. But then there's the whole story where he's trying to gain Saul's approval. And nothing he does. He's really a good guy. He sings, he plays. It's soothing to the king. He's a warrior. He's great for Israel. But the king hates him and is trying to kill him. Eventually, he finds his way to the throne. But it was not the path he intended. Do you realize right now that whatever you're doing in life, you probably have some obstacles in front of you. You might feel like you're caught in the mud and the mire. But may I suggest you're probably right where God wants you to be, and He wants to lift you out of that. David eventually got to the throne. It happened. But not in the time frame that he thought, not in the way that he thought. How about you? Is it happening the way you thought? Probably not. I love talking to our Tuesday morning group and ask them, which I'm the youngest person there most of the time, so you could call it a senior group. Ask them, has life gone exactly the way you expected? And it'd be like, they just laugh at that. They just think it's hilarious. So how did David get there? Let's go back to verse 1. I waited patiently for the Lord to help me, and He turned to me and heard my cry. I encourage you to cry out to the Lord today. And whether your mud and mire is sin, or whether you just feel like you're being defeated and nothing's ever going to go right in your marriage, in your family, at work, cry out to the Lord, wait patiently. He will hear you. Have a great day.